Shocking palace revelation. When a royal guard uncovered the Queen Consort secretly burning the late Queen's private letters, the flames revealed more than paper. They exposed hidden betrayals, forbidden truths, and a royal conspiracy buried for years. One man stood alone against power to protect a legacy built on honesty, not lies. You won't believe the ending. Watch till the end, like this video, and subscribe now. The moment he smelled it, Sergeant Nathan Cole knew something inside Windsor Castle was terribly wrong. That scent, dry, bitter, ancient, was not wood or candle wax. It was paper, old paper. The kind kept in sealed boxes and royal archives, the kind that carried history in its dust. He followed the faint trail of smoke through the quiet corridor of the West Wing, every instinct sharpened. The halls were empty. Portraits of monarchs staring down from their gilded frames, as if silently judging what was about to unfold. He was covering another guard's post that night, a last-minute shift change after someone fell ill. Maybe fate, maybe coincidence. But as Nathan turned the corner, he saw it. A thin orange light glowing from beneath a door that was never supposed to open again. The plaque on the wall read, "Private Correspondence, Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Nathan froze. The room had been sealed since the funeral. Only the chief archivist and 2 senior historians held clearance. No exceptions, yet there it was, light, heat, and the unmistakable smell of burning. He pressed his hand to the door. It was warm, too warm. He tried his radio, static, no response. Someone had jammed the internal frequency. He had no time for hesitation. With a deep breath, he gripped the handle, twisted, and pushed. The door burst open, flames danced along the curtains, licking the edges of priceless paper. The air shimmered with heat, and standing in the center of it all, holding a brass fire poker like a torch, was Queen Camilla herself. Her face was lit by the fire's reflection, her eyes bright and cold. Before her, an antique desk was covered in ash and half-burned envelopes sealed with the late Queen's insignia. Nathan's stomach dropped. The private letters of Queen Elizabeth, personal records, historical notes, maybe even secrets, were being destroyed. Your Majesty, he shouted, stepping forward. You need to stop! Camilla did not even flinch. You are out of line, Sergeant. Those letters are historical property. They belong to the Royal Archive, she smiled faintly. Not anymore. They belong to me, and soon they will belong to no one, he stared, disbelief turning to anger. You are burning evidence. Camilla turned, holding up a half-scorched page. Evidence? No, Sergeant. Memories. My predecessor's little reminders of what I was never meant to be. She wrote things that could shatter this family. I am protecting the crown, Nathan stepped closer. By destroying it? Her smile faded. By rewriting it. The firelight glinted in her earrings. Ash swirled like snow. The smell of ink and wax filled the air. Nathan knew he could not let her continue. His training screamed, contain the scene, protect the artifact. He reached for the nearest fire extinguisher. Camilla's voice rose, sharp and regal. Do not touch that, Sergeant. You have no authority here. Nathan's eyes met hers. My authority comes from the oath I took, to protect what the crown stands for, not what someone wishes to erase. He yanked the pin and sprayed the flames. Smoke filled the chamber, roaring against marble walls. Camilla backed away, coughing, her gown streaked with soot. The fire hissed, died, and left behind a scorched desk littered with blackened parchment. Amid the ashes, something gleamed faintly, a silver locket, half melted, lying beside a folded letter that had survived the flames. Nathan grabbed it quickly before Camilla could see. You are finished here, she spat, her voice low and trembling. You have no idea what you have just done. Nathan held the letter close. No, Your Majesty. You have no idea what you almost destroyed. As he turned toward the door, she shouted after him. That letter is mine. He stopped just long enough to say, then it should not have her seal on it. He stepped into the corridor and pulled the emergency alarm. Red lights flared across the palace. Guards would be swarming any second. Behind him, through the crack of the closing door, he saw Camilla sink into a chair, her face pale under the flickering lights. For the first time, she looked less like a queen and more like someone cornered by her own lies. Nathan slipped the letter into his uniform pocket. It felt heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. Whatever was written inside, he knew one thing. It was dangerous. The kind of truth people set fires to bury. And now, that truth was in his hands. Smoke still clung to Sergeant Nathan Cole's uniform long after he left the sealed chamber. Every step he took through Windsor's ancient corridors carried that scent of scorched parchment, a reminder of how close history had come to vanishing in flames. He had not told anyone what he found. Not yet. The palace was alive with motion now, guards running, alarms echoing, fire teams rushing to contain the blaze. He moved quietly through the chaos, the unburned letter pressed flat inside his jacket pocket, the silver locket hidden in his glove. The letter was fragile, edges browned from heat, the Queen's personal seal half melted but intact. That meant it had been written by Queen Elizabeth herself, and if Camilla was willing to burn it, the contents had to be dangerous. Nathan slipped into a maintenance corridor, found a quiet bench beneath a centuries-old portrait, and unfolded the parchment. The handwriting was elegant, slanted, unmistakable. The same ink he had seen in the royal archives during security audits. He began to read. To my successor, some truths cannot be passed by crown or ceremony. They must be carried by conscience. Within the correspondence chamber lies a second record, my private ledger of names and deeds. Keep it sealed unless the throne falls under deceit, for within it are those who wear loyalty like a mask, burn nothing. Reveal everything when duty demands, Nathan froze. The words pulsed in his mind. Those who wear loyalty like a mask. It was not just a letter. It was a warning. He turned the page, but the lower half had burned away. The last visible line read, "If this message reaches the wrong hands, the fire will consume more than paper." He looked up sharply. The Queen had known someone would try to destroy her records, and now Camilla had proven her right. Nathan folded the page carefully and slipped it back into his uniform. He needed to find that ledger, the one Elizabeth had mentioned. It could contain the evidence of how deep the corruption went. But before he could move, a soft voice spoke behind him. "You should not have taken that letter, Sergeant." He turned quickly. Lord Alfred Pembroke, senior advisor to the consort's office, stood at the end of the hall. His expression was calm, too calm, the kind that came from knowing more than he should. Nathan's hand went instinctively toward his radio. The chamber was on fire. "I saved royal property." Pembroke stepped closer. "What you call saving, others will call theft. The Queen Consort has already reported you for trespassing." "I was performing my duty," Nathan replied evenly. I followed the smoke. Pembroke's gaze flicked toward Nathan's pocket. "You found something, did you not?" "Her letters?" Nathan kept his tone steady. "What I found belongs to the crown, not to you." The advisor's smile never reached his eyes. "Careful, Sergeant. The crown is no longer what you think it is." That was the moment Nathan knew. Pembroke was part of it. The forged documents, the missing archives, the silence that had covered Camilla's dealings for months. He had seen men like this in other wars as not soldiers, but those who fed on control. "I have work to do," Nathan said, stepping past him. Pembroke's voice followed, smooth as silk. "Then you had better move quickly." "The consort has ordered your arrest." Nathan froze mid-step. "On what charge?" "Arson, theft, and insubordination. She says you started the fire to cover your own intrusion." A bitter laugh escaped his throat. "Convenient," Pembroke shrugged. "In the palace, truth is only what survives the paperwork." Nathan turned sharply. But the advisor had already vanished down the corridor. He moved fast now, cutting through the lower halls toward the archivist's office, one of the few places left where truth still mattered. Clara Vance, the senior archivist, had worked under the late Queen for 20 years. If anyone knew where Elizabeth's private ledger was hidden, it would be her. When he reached the office, the lights were off. A single lamp glowed behind the frosted glass door. Nathan knocked once. A voice answered softly. "Enter." Clara sat behind her desk, papers spread out like a storm around her. Her face was pale, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She looked up. "I heard about the fire." "It was not an accident," Nathan said, closing the door behind him. The Queen Consort was in the chamber herself. She was burning the letters. Clara's hands trembled. I feared this would happen. The old Queen's correspondence contained things that could shake the council. Nathan pulled the letter from his pocket and laid it on her desk. I saved this one. She leaned forward, reading the words slowly. When she reached the phrase, "Those who wear loyalty like a mask," her expression darkened. She was speaking of them, Clara whispered. The Privy Council's hidden branch, the same men who forged her early treaties. They wanted control after her passing. She refused. Then they turned to Camilla, Nathan said quietly. Clara nodded. And now they are rewriting history to make her rule seem unchallenged. Nathan stepped closer. The letter mentions a ledger, a hidden record of names. Do you know where it is? Clara hesitated, then walked to the far wall and pressed a small carved lion emblem. A hidden panel slid open, revealing an old chest wrapped in silk. She placed her hand over it. The Queen told me to protect this until the time came, she said. I prayed that time would never arrive. Nathan opened the chest carefully. Inside lay a leather-bound book, edges gilded with gold leaf, the cover marked with the royal crest. He opened it and froze. Page after page listed names, dates, and handwritten notes, politicians, diplomats, even royal family members, each with coded remarks beside their names, betrayed trust, sold secrets, under surveillance. Clara whispered, "This is what she meant." The fire was never meant to destroy history. It was meant to hide the truth about who shaped it. Nathan closed the ledger and looked at her. Then we need to protect it. Whatever it takes. Before she could reply, the door burst open. Palace guards flooded in, weapons drawn. Sergeant Nathan Cole, the lead officer barked. By order of the consort's office. You are under arrest. Nathan raised his hands slowly. The ledger clutched to his chest. You are arresting the wrong person, the officer frowned. Then you had better pray the king believes you. The iron door slammed shut behind Sergeant Nathan Cole, echoing through the underground detention wing beneath Windsor Castle. The sound was heavy, not just metal on stone, but betrayal closing in around him. The cell was small, lit by a single bulb that flickered like a heartbeat. The air smelled of damp limestone and old secrets. He sat on the cold bench, his hands still cuffed, the bruises on his wrists raw where the guards had pulled the ledger from his grip. Through the barred window on the door, he could see shadows passing, palace guards he once called brothers. None would meet his eyes. Word of his arrest had already spread. By now, the official report would say he'd tampered with evidence, started a fire, and stolen classified materials. He knew how this worked. He had seen men erased before, reputations burned cleaner than the papers Camilla had destroyed. He exhaled slowly. If they think I am finished, they are wrong. A soft voice broke the silence. You look calmer than I expected. Nathan looked up. A woman stood outside his cell, framed by the yellow light. Clara Vance, the royal archivist, had come. Her face was pale but resolute. He rose to his feet. Clara, the ledger, safe, she interrupted. I took it when they dragged you out. Hid it in the North Conservatory archives under the restoration records. No one checks there anymore. He let out a quiet sigh of relief. Good. That book is everything. Clara nodded, glancing down the corridor. But they will come for it soon. Pembroke's men are already sweeping the palace. They know it exists. Then we need to move faster, Nathan said. The king has to see it before they get to him. Clara hesitated. The king is isolated. The council has restricted his visitors. Camilla controls his briefings now. Even the marshal cannot reach him. Nathan clenched his fists. Then we find another way. Hours passed before the door opened again. This time it was Captain Dorian Wells, his former commanding officer, flanked by 2 guards. Dorian's uniform was crisp, but his expression carried a flicker of conflict. Sergeant, he said, voice steady but subdued. By order of the consort's office, you are to be transferred to St. Briar's Military Hospital for evaluation. Nathan frowned. Evaluation? I am not injured. It is not for injuries, Dorian said quietly. It is for sanity. The words hit harder than a blow. So that is the plan, Nathan said, almost laughing. Discredit me. Make me a madman who imagined it all. Dorian's jaw tightened. You made enemies in high places. Do you believe I am lying? Nathan asked. Dorian did not answer. Let's go. They led him down the hall toward the elevator. The air grew colder as they descended into the lower levels, the old servants' tunnels long repurposed for discreet transfers. Nathan's mind raced. If I leave this castle, the truth dies with me. As they reached the loading bay, thunder rolled outside. A storm had begun to rage over Windsor. The rain hammered the metal doors, masking the distant hum of engines. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind. "Captain Wells!" Clara appeared, soaked from the rain, holding a sealed envelope. She looked terrified but determined. "This order overrides the transfer," she said, stepping forward. "Direct authorization from the Marshal's office." Dorian's brow furrowed. "The Marshal? That is impossible." He reinstated it this morning," Clara lied smoothly, handing him the envelope. "Check the seal." Dorian took it, examined the wax insignia. It looked genuine. He hesitated. Nathan could see the war behind his eyes. Then Dorian sighed. "Release him, temporarily." The guards obeyed, unlocking the cuffs. Nathan rubbed his wrists, relief flickering through him. Dorian leaned close. "If you are wrong, Sergeant, there will be no coming back from this." "I know," Nathan said. "If I am right, there may still be a crown to come back to." Minutes later, Nathan and Clara slipped through the outer gates under the cover of the storm. The guards were busy securing flood barriers. No one noticed two shadows vanishing into the mist. They moved through the narrow servants' path that led to the North Conservatory, the air filled with the scent of wet roses and stone. Inside, Clara pulled back a false panel near the far wall. From the hollow behind it, she retrieved the Queen's ledger, wrapped in oilcloth. Nathan opened it just enough to confirm it was intact. "We take this to the Marshal. He is the only one left who can act without the Council's permission," Clara nodded. "He is in the lower west wing tonight, overseeing the investigation. But we need to be careful. Pembroke has men watching every route." They stepped into the corridor, only to hear the sound of boots approaching fast. Clara grabbed Nathan's arm and pulled him behind a curtain. 3 guards marched past, speaking in low voices. "Consort's orders," one said. "The Marshal is to be detained for questioning. She claims he authorized illegal access to restricted archives." Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "They are silencing him too." Nathan's eyes hardened. "Then it is worse than I thought. She is removing every voice that can contradict her." He took a deep breath. "We go to the West Wing anyway." "If she is tightening her grip, we strike now, while she thinks I am still locked underground." Clara's eyes searched his. "Nathan, if we fail," he finished for her, "then the crown burns for real this time." They moved like ghosts through the castle's forgotten passageways, guided only by memory and moonlight. As they neared the West Wing, Nathan could already hear raised voices, shouting orders, the sound of boots and confusion. They turned the corner and saw it, a cluster of guards surrounding the Marshal's office. And standing in the middle of them, calm as ever, was Lord Pembroke, holding a sealed crimson folder. "Secure the evidence and bring me the ledger," he commanded. Nathan's pulse quickened. "They know." He reached into his coat, clutching the ledger tighter. "We cannot let him have it," Clara whispered. "Then we expose him ourselves." Nathan glanced at the fire alarm mounted on the wall, the same kind that had saved the letters hours ago. He smiled grimly. "Once more, then." He smashed the glass and pulled the lever. Sirens erupted across the palace. Red lights flared. Chaos spread like wildfire, and in that chaos, the guard who once saved history from burning prepared to ignite a different kind of fire, one that could expose the lies hiding behind every royal curtain, the alarm screamed, through the marble halls of Windsor Castle, echoing against portraits of long-dead kings and queens. Red lights flashed across the corridors, scattering the palace guards like startled birds. For the first time in years, the order of royalty cracked, and through that chaos, Sergeant Nathan Cole and Clara Vance moved unseen. Nathan gripped the Queen's ledger close to his chest. Every page of it pulsed with danger, a record of betrayal stretching decades. Each name written by Queen Elizabeth's hand was a confession waiting to destroy the wrong people. "We do not have long," Clara whispered as they turned into the west corridor, her voice trembling but fierce. "The council is already assembling. Pembroke will use the chaos to declare a full security lockdown." Nathan nodded, scanning the hall ahead. "Then we go where he cannot silence us, the throne room." Her eyes widened. "During session?" "That is suicide." He smiled faintly. "Not if the king hears me first." The west wing glowed with gold and tension. Through the tall doors ahead, Nathan could already hear voices, urgent, angry, frightened. The Privy Council was in emergency session, gathered under the glittering chandeliers to address the fire incident. At the center of the room stood Lord Pembroke, his silver hair immaculate, his tone sharp as he addressed the king. "Your Majesty, the situation grows dire. Sergeant Nathan Cole has gone rogue. He attacked the consort's private quarters, stole classified documents, and endangered palace security. I recommend immediate authorization for his detention and the destruction of any stolen materials." The king leaned forward on the dais, weariness clouding his eyes. "You are certain?" Pembroke bowed. "I saw the evidence myself, Your Majesty." "The guard has lost his mind." A ripple of agreement spread among the council members. It was all going according to plan, until the doors burst open. Nathan stepped into the chamber, his uniform torn and smoke-streaked, the ledger in his hand. Guards moved instantly, rifles raised. "Stand down," Pembroke roared. "He is armed and dangerous." Nathan lifted his voice above the noise. "The only weapon I carry is the truth." The room fell into stunned silence. Even the king froze. Clara slipped in behind Nathan, clutching a small recorder. Her heart pounded, but her eyes never left the dais. Pembroke sneered. "Arrest him!" "Wait," the king said quietly. "Let him speak." Nathan stepped forward until the light from the chandeliers gleamed across the gilt lettering on the ledger's cover. "This," he said, holding it high, "is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's private record, her final account of those who betrayed her trust. The same book the consort tried to burn along with her letters tonight." Gasps rippled through the room. Pembroke's composure cracked. "Lies. Fabrications written by a delusional soldier." Nathan ignored him. He opened the book and read aloud. Entry 14. Lord Alfred Pembroke, compromised by foreign investment in exchange for access to royal directives. Recommends control of the consort's narrative post-succession. The king's eyes snapped to Pembroke. "Is this true?" Pembroke's voice faltered. "Your Majesty," Nathan read again. Entry 27. Consort Camilla, advised by Pembroke to conceal public correspondence that may discredit her public image. Manipulation of royal charity funds suspected. Now even the council members who once supported Pembroke looked uneasy. You would trust the scribbles of a dead woman over your living advisors. Pembroke hissed. Nathan closed the book. "I would trust the handwriting of a queen who never lied to her people." He turned to the king. "Your Majesty, she foresaw this. She wrote that one day the truth would be buried under comfort." Those were her words. Comfort. That is what they sell you. Comfort while they turn your history into ash. Pembroke took a step forward, voice rising. "Enough! Arrest him!" But the guards hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. Clara moved quickly, placing the recorder on the table. She pressed play. Camilla's voice echoed through the speakers, taken from the body cam footage Nathan had recovered from his uniform earlier that night. "You think people want truth? They want comfort. And if a tiara helps them believe the monarchy still shines, then I will wear it proudly." The king's face turned pale. Pembroke's expression twisted into panic. The chamber erupted, voices shouting, guards unsure where to point their guns. The king rose slowly from his throne. "Enough!" The hall went silent again. He looked at Nathan. "You have risked everything for this." "Yes, Your Majesty," Nathan said, steady. "Because if I do not, then the crown stands for nothing." The king turned to Pembroke. "You spoke of loyalty. I see now whose loyalty you served," Pembroke stammered. "This is a mistake." "Guards," the king said, voice firm. "Take him." The guards moved swiftly. Pembroke struggled as they seized him, shouting threats about influence and power that no one dared to listen to anymore. Nathan lowered his head, exhausted. Clara squeezed his arm, relief breaking across her face like dawn. The king stepped down from the dais, his crown casting faint reflections across the floor. He looked at Nathan with quiet grief. "My mother trusted her guards more than her council," he said softly. "Now I understand why." He placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. "You have restored her honor, and mine." Nathan bowed his head. "I only did my duty, sire," the king smiled faintly. "That is exactly what she would have said." Later that night, as the palace lights dimmed and the storm finally faded, Nathan and Clara stood in the Queen's correspondence chamber once more. The air was still, the ashes cold. Nathan placed the ledger on the restored desk, beside the surviving letter. Clara whispered, "What now?" He looked toward the stained glass window where moonlight poured in like silver rain. "Now we let the truth breathe." He took the Queen's letter, folded it gently, and slid it into the ledger's final page. The words "burn nothing, reveal everything" glowed faintly under the moon. For the first time, the silence in Windsor felt peaceful. Not watchful, not heavy, just free. Windsor Castle had never felt so alive, yet so divided. The marble corridors that once whispered of ceremony now echoed with footsteps of investigators, journalists, and royal aides whispering a single name. Sergeant Nathan Cole. He had done what no one else dared. He had stood before the crown and spoken the truth. But the cost of truth was always higher than the price of silence. It had been 2 days since the exposé in the throne room. 2 days since Lord Pembroke was escorted out in handcuffs, shouting threats that no longer frightened anyone. 2 days since the king, visibly shaken, suspended Queen Consort Camilla's duties pending investigation. The palace was still reeling. Half of the council had resigned. The others were under review. Reporters camped outside the gates, broadcasting every flicker of scandal across the world. And in the middle of it all, Nathan sat alone in a small office overlooking the courtyard, his uniform folded neatly on the desk. He was no longer under arrest, but he was not free either. The inquiry had cleared him of wrongdoing, but warned him not to speak to the press until the king issued a public statement. He stared out the window. Rain began to fall again, soft and steady. It was the same kind of rain that had fallen the night the fire began, the night that changed everything. A quiet knock broke his thoughts. The door opened, and Clara Vance stepped in, carrying a folder and a faint smile. "You look like you are waiting for judgment." Nathan managed a tired grin. "Feels like it." "How many more hours until the council decides whether I am a hero or a liability?" Clara placed the folder on his desk. "You are already both. Heroes make the powerful uncomfortable." He looked down at the folder. The royal insignia gleamed faintly. "What is this?" "The king's decision," she said softly. "He is calling for you." Nathan stood slowly, his pulse quickening. The king's private study was smaller than the grand throne room, but it felt heavier with history. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. The smell of leather and parchment filled the air. The king stood by the fireplace. No crown on his head, just a simple dark suit and a face aged beyond his years. When Nathan entered, the king turned with a faint, tired smile. "Sergeant Cole, Your Majesty." "I owe you more than thanks," the king said, motioning for him to sit. "Because of you, my mother's final words were not turned to ash." Nathan shook his head. "Because of her words, I knew what I had to do," the king nodded slowly. "She always believed the guard's oath meant more than the council's titles. I see now she was right." He picked up a sealed envelope from his desk and handed it to Nathan. "Inside is your official restoration. Full honors, reinstatement, and elevation to the Royal Command Unit." Nathan blinked. "That is not necessary, sire." The king smiled faintly. "That is precisely why it is." Nathan opened the envelope. Inside, along with the new insignia, was a handwritten note. "You protected truth when the rest of us feared it. Let this remind those who come after you. Loyalty is service, not silence." He swallowed hard. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The king walked to the window, looking out over the rain-washed courtyard. "Camilla will face a tribunal next week. Pembroke and his partners are already under prosecution. The nation will judge them, not me." Nathan stood. "Then it is over." The king shook his head. "No, It is beginning again, properly this time. The monarchy must belong to the people, and that means transparency, accountability, and courage. The kind you showed. For the first time since that night, Nathan allowed himself a breath of relief. Then maybe all this pain was worth it. It was, the king said. But pain leaves scars, even on crowns. That evening, Nathan walked the castle grounds alone. The air was cool, and the scent of rain mixed with roses from the royal garden. Servants bowed respectfully as he passed. Some whispered his name like a prayer. At the chapel gate, he found Clara waiting under an umbrella, her face soft with quiet pride. "They are already calling you the guard who saved history," she said. He smiled faintly. "History does not need saving. It just needs people to stop rewriting it," Clara laughed softly. "Still the soldier." "Always," he said. She reached into her coat and handed him something wrapped in cloth. "I found this among the recovered letters, one you missed." He unwrapped it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in the late Queen's hand. "To the one who stands when others bow. Remember, truth burns, but it also cleanses. Do not fear the fire, be its keeper." Nathan closed his eyes, letting the words sink deep. He looked toward the castle's upper windows, where the king's study glowed faintly against the dark sky. She knew this would come. All of it, Clara nodded. She trusted the right man to finish what she started. He looked at her. "Then we finish it together." They walked toward the royal memorial courtyard, where the statue of Queen Elizabeth stood. The rain had stopped, leaving the air clear and sharp. As they reached the steps, the palace bells began to ring, slow, solemn, and full of meaning. The sound carried across the city, across the world, announcing not tragedy but renewal. That night, the royal press office released a statement written by the king himself. "The courage of one guard has reminded us all that truth is the foundation upon which honor stands. The monarchy endures not through power, but through service. We move forward not in silence, but in light." News outlets flooded with images of Nathan standing beside the restored archives, his face calm and steady beneath the royal banners. Across the nation, citizens spoke his name with respect. Children in schools learned his story. Artists painted his portrait. The man who once guarded corridors now guarded a legacy. And somewhere in the quiet of the old correspondence chamber, the scent of smoke lingered, not of destruction, but of remembrance. The truth had burned, but it had also purified. A year had passed since the night of the fire. The kingdom had changed, quietly, but completely. Windsor Castle no longer felt like the fortress of secrets it once was. The hallways, once heavy with silence, now echoed with new energy. Tourists wandered through open exhibitions of letters once hidden. School children whispered in awe beneath portraits of monarchs. And for the first time in living memory, the people saw not mystery behind the crown, but truth. In the courtyard stood a new marble monument. At its base, cast in bronze, was a plaque engraved with 12 words that had shaken the kingdom. "Loyalty is service, not silence," the oath of Sergeant Nathan Cole. Every recruit of the Royal Guard now began their service beneath those words. Nathan Cole stood before that monument in his formal uniform, medals gleaming softly against the morning light. The air smelled of spring rain and new beginnings. Around him stood rows of young cadets, their eyes steady, their postures perfect. It was the first ceremony of the reformed Guard Corps, founded by royal decree. The king himself presided, flanked by Clara Vance, now appointed as Royal Archivist General. When the anthem faded, the king stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. "Today we do not only honor a man, we honor what he reminded us to be, faithful servants of truth." Sergeant Nathan Cole stood alone when deception surrounded him, and because of that, every one of us stands taller today. Applause rippled across the courtyard. Nathan bowed his head slightly, humbled. The king continued, "From this day, the Guard's pledge will carry new words, written in his honor. Let it be known as the Oath Reborn." He handed Nathan a parchment. "Sergeant, would you do us the honor?" Nathan unfolded it slowly and began to read. "I swear upon my service to protect not only the crown, but the truth it must serve. I will guard with courage, speak with honesty, and stand even when standing alone. I will burn nothing, hide nothing, and let no fire consume what history entrusts to me. His voice carried across the courtyard like a quiet drum. The crowd fell silent, and for a moment, it felt as though even the wind had stopped to listen. When he finished, the king placed a medal around his neck, not of gold, but of simple silver, engraved with the words, "Keeper of Truth." The audience rose in unison. The sound of hands meeting echoed like thunder. Clara, standing at the side, wiped a tear. She had seen this man go from accused to honored, from hunted to hero. And now, watching him stand before the young cadets, she realized something deeper. Nathan had not just changed the palace. He had changed what it meant to serve. After the ceremony, Nathan and Clara walked through the palace gardens together. The roses were blooming again, the same ones that had been blackened by smoke a year ago. "You wrote that oath, did you not?" she asked with a knowing smile. Nathan smiled faintly. "No, I only lived it." "The king gave it words," she laughed softly, "and history will give it wings." He paused near the reflecting pool, watching the water ripple in the sunlight. "Strange, is it not? A year ago, this place felt suffocating. Now it feels alive. Because truth breathes, Nathan," she said gently. "Once it's out, it never dies." He nodded slowly. "Then I suppose we owe that to her. The Queen." "Yes," he said. "She saw the storm coming, and she left behind the map to survive it." Clara smiled. "And you followed it, even through fire." He turned toward her, the faintest glint of humor in his eyes. "You followed me through fire, too." Her laughter broke the quiet. "Someone had to keep you from setting off every alarm in the castle." By sunset, the crowd had dispersed, but Nathan remained in the courtyard. The king had retired to his study. The new cadets had been dismissed. The torches lining the stone walls flickered softly as dusk descended. Nathan stood before the statue again, the marble likeness of Queen Elizabeth II, one hand resting on a stack of letters, the other raised as if blessing the guards before her. At her feet, carved in graceful script, were her final words, "Burn nothing. Reveal everything." He removed his hat and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I kept my promise." For a long moment there was only stillness. Then, in the faint glow of torchlight, he thought he saw it, a small reflection of flame in the Queen's marble eyes. Not the fire of destruction, but the quiet, eternal fire of truth. He smiled. "And I will keep it still." Weeks later, the Royal Gazette published an editorial titled, "The Guard Who Rebuilt the Crown." It described how one man's act of courage had inspired reform, not just in the palace, but across the nation. New transparency laws, the digitization of royal archives, and annual ceremonies honoring those who stood for integrity in government. The story of Sergeant Nathan Cole became required reading in schools. His phrase, "Loyalty is service, not silence," became a proverb, printed on classroom walls, courtroom doors, and even military barracks. He never sought fame, but it found him nonetheless. Still, every evening, when the last tourist left and the palace grew quiet again, Nathan would walk alone through the archives. He would pause at the sealed glass case where the late Queen's final letter rested, edges browned, her words preserved forever. "Do not fear the fire, be its keeper." And as he stood before it, hands clasped behind his back, he whispered the same vow he had spoken that night under the burning ceiling. "I serve truth. Always. When truth is tested, only courage can save it." If Sergeant Nathan Cole's story moved your heart, like this video, share it. And subscribe to our channel for more emotional, motivational stories that celebrate honesty, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit. Comment below. Would you stand for truth even if it cost you everything?